Okay. So Pankaj, over to you.
Very good morning, everyone. I hope you are doing well. I am Pankaj, your host for this session. I am a final year student at Government College of Engineering, Aurangabad. Along with me, I have a very talented co-host, that is Preeti. We both welcome to this wonderful session. Today, we are honored with a very special guest, Mr. Sunil Chitale, sir. He is president of Kalpruksha Technologies and he has a vast experience of last 40 years in the IT industry. Am I right, sir?
Almost.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, I would like to request Ms. Preeti to please introduce Mr. Sunil Chitale, sir, to our audience.
Hello everybody, my name is Preeti Sangai and I'm in the second year at SGGS College Nanded. So as we know that we are gathered here to discuss our problems and to find out the solutions over it. So to also to learn new things and to know what are the upcoming opportunities for us. So are you guys excited? Yes, okay.
Yes.
Then
Yes.
okay, so first of all, let me introduce you, Mr. Sunil Chitale, sir. So, sir is president at Kalpabruksha System Limited. Until recently, sir was an executive vice president and the head of strategy, marketing, and planning at IDA. So, Sunil sir began his career with Patni in 1985 and served the company in different and varied leadership roles. So, thank you.
Thank you, Preeti. Thank you.
Thank you, Preeti. Sir, should we start our interview?
Yeah. All yours.
Sir, we would like to start from a very basic. So, can you tell us about your childhood? What are some of your favorite activities or hobbies when you were a child? And how did any of these interests influence your career choices later in your life?
Um, it was a very simple childhood. My father came to in Mumbai in 1950, I think, from a family in a place called Nevre near Ratnagiri. And he started ground up the stories he told us, the struggles he went through. And one thing was, he was very particular about education. And therefore, he made sure that we got into decent schools. I won't say the best schools, but decent school. I was brought up in a suburb called Goregaon, those of you know, in Mumbai. So there was this school, and I was fortunately, it happened to be an English medium school, and very diverse set of people. The principal or the founder of the school, George P. Oman, he was a very interesting character. So our school had people from all strata of society. We had very rich kids and very poor kids. And so it was a very interesting experience. Childhood was a very interesting experience. It also a little bit, my father was in technical field. He was with those of you or your parents may know, there was a company called Nirlon Synthetics. So my father used to be working for Nirlon Synthetics, and he was in technical field, instrumentation. And so from the childhood, I think there was this interest in electronics, I should say. And that resulted finally into me getting into BHU and do electronics. So that was very interesting. But childhood was normal. My father was very strict when it came to studies. So, I mean, if you didn't get in the first two places in the class, he used to be very upset. And parents of that time, when they got upset, they did things that these parents can't imagine. So it was interesting childhood. But I have a younger brother Anil and my sister Rupa, and three of us, I think we went to the same school. I think we did okay. We were top of the class most of the time, and so that helped. But we were probably big fish in a small pond. until I went to BHU and realized, oh, there are thousands of kids who are intelligent or more intelligent than I am. And that was a very interesting experience. So until BHU, I was like, I'm doing good, everything is fine. And then we went to BHU, and things changed for me. So that's a brief, but it was a okay childhood. As intelligent or more intelligent than I am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Then, were there any particular people, such as family members, teachers, or public figures, who inspired you during your childhood?
No, I don't think there was any particular public figure or anything that I think uh, I didn't. In fact, there was a time I didn't know till very late in my childhood. I think after I went to when I did my 11th and 12th at Parle College in Villeparle, that is the time I started realizing that the options that are available to children that time, of the various streams that one could pursue, etc. And that's how I started thinking about, oh, one can do this and engineering and medicine, etc. I mean, I knew broadly, but I didn't know the path. But all of that became clear once I went to Parle College. I think that is where I think it started. I started thinking maybe I should do this. And funnily enough, I didn't. I got, I think, 86% in PCM at that point, and I missed VJTI by I think 1% or something, which was a good thing, I think, in the retrospect, because then I did take JE again, and I got into BHU. So I think that was staying away from home. Perhaps was a very, very important and formative experience I had. That was in 81. So.
Thank you, sir. It's shocking for me to know that you are also a repeater.
Yes, in some sense,
In
yes.
that era also,
I think I did fail. I just did not get the admission. So repeater has a different connotation.
okay, sir. So moving forward in life, now, can you tell us about your first job in IT industry? What were your initial roles and what you learned from that experiences?
Yeah, I think my first job, as you have talked about, I joined straight out of college. I joined Patni Computers. That time, Patni never used to come to campus. I mean, it was a small company, maybe 50, 60 people, and mainly known for hardware. I mean, I knew somebody from BHU who had joined Patni in hardware. That time it was called PCS. And so when I came back after I didn't get placement in during the final year. Not because, I mean, I just didn't try. I think I attended one placement talk by Telco. And I came to Bombay and I knew PCS and I knew obviously the TULs and several Blue Stars and all that. And I applied to PCS and they had an aptitude test. And there was an interview and, I got in 1985. So it started with programming. That time we didn't even know IT exports or IT services. It was just, I've gotten into software and I will do programming, and it was enjoyable that time. I really enjoyed doing software programming. Even during my BHU days, uh, while my degree was in electronics, we spent a lot of time in the computer center. And that interest kind of was developed during the BHU days. You guys may not remember, India that time had, I don't know what program it was with the UK government, and we had BBC microcomputers in our college, in the computer center. And that kind of gave an inkling, oh, I have to be in this field and not electronics. And so when I joined Patni, it was great to get into Patni, and I started programming. And of all the things, we started programming in COBOL. I don't know how many of you know a language called COBOL anymore, but that's how I started. And from there, it was just 10 years of straight programming and various other, events that helped shape my life. So my first job was Patni, straight out of college. Lucky to get in, I think, because I didn't try any specific thing. I went, applied, took the aptitude test, and got selected into Patni.
Sir, then next question is, what challenges do you see recent graduates facing when transitioning from campus to corporate? And
Sorry,
how can they overcome?
I couldn't get that question. Could you just say that again?
Okay, sir. Hello. So my next question is, what challenges do you see recent graduates facing when transitioning from campus to corporate? And how can they overcome these obstacles effectively?
I think I have, Kalpruks is a small company, right? But I have been recruiting from, even when I was in Patni till 2014, Patni or Igate till 2014, 2012, 12 or 13, I don't remember, 13, I think. I used to go to campus for interviews. I went to campus till till 2010, I think. So 2010 also I was going to campuses. And I found that, and so if I look at from then to now, I used to meet a lot of students then, and I meet very less students at this point in time. But I do find that people are not ready for the industry, even today. And that is a little tough. When you go to recruiting for recruitment, and we find that, people, I mean, sometimes I'm shocked that people don't know some basics. And I'm not looking for people to talk about software. I'm not interested in people knowing a language, or Python or Java or JavaScript, etc. Those are all learnable skills. It is just you have to understand the language and learn it. But the basic aptitude required for industry and engineering industry, whether it is software or not software, I find that people lack in that. And I'll give you some examples. One of the things I find that basic understanding of how to solve problems, how to formulate a problem, doesn't exist among students. So I would say that going from campus to corporate, it is good to know a language if you are thinking of software, for example, because all of you are IT and computer science students. But more important than that is how do you take a problem that has been stated, and how do you convert it into something that can be solved logically? And that skill is basic engineering skills. I'm not asking you to solve differential equations or trying to understand thermodynamics from you. No, I'm asking for basic skills of problem solving. And I find that students need to focus on that if they want to move from campus to corporate. If you focus on, can you take a problem statement or a situation that is given and convert it into a step-by-step logical solution, or at least even define the problem properly. And I'll give you an example. And these are the kind of questions I ask when I interview freshers. Okay. And I find that people are not able to solve this problem. I'll give you one example, and you can think about it. People say, I'm particularly people from IT and computer science say, I know programming. Okay, I have done programming. I say, okay, what is program? It is a set of instructions, right? Set of instructions to achieve a certain goal. So my question, one of the problems I ask people is, all of you must be wearing shoes, right? and shoes that have laces, right? Write a set of instructions, a simple set of instructions that can explain someone how to tie shoelaces.
नाही नाही हे बघ इथं दिसतं Zoom.
Okay, how to tie shoelaces is a problem all of us have learned. All of us have learned in the childhood, maybe in second standard or third standard. Translating into a set of English instructions, one would think is the simplest task possible. Right? And I find people are not able to do that. I give 20 minutes, 30 minutes for people to come up with that set of instructions. And I find people struggle coming up with what should be those set of instructions. So things like that. There are several other examples that I use. I gave you just one example, which seems very intuitive. We know it. We tie shoes every day. We tie shoelaces. But when it comes to, if you want to do software programming, you should be able to give a set of instructions to the computer, which is dumb. So if you're going to do that, how are you going to take this particular problem of tying shoelaces and translate into something that someone who reads it will be able to execute? So I find that this basic skill of problem definition and problem solving doesn't exist. So Preeti, to your question as to campus to corporate, at least the companies I know and the people I know, my colleagues and seniors in the industry, when I ask them what is the problem, they find that this ability to solve problem doesn't exist. Or not everybody has it. I'm not saying it doesn't exist at all. Some people do have that and they get hired. But getting this understanding is, I think, very critical. I know it's a very simple answer. Maybe it sounds a dumb answer, but that's what my perspective or experience has been. Pradeep, I don't know what you think, but and others who are there, I know Sunil Patil is there, so but that is my experience.
Thank you, sir, for this wonderful answer. It's a complete and new insight for us. Okay, it's like opening a new door.
Yeah,
I think,
I hope so. I hope so. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but I think this gives a different perspective to all the students.
Yeah. Thanks, Sunil.
Yeah. So along with that, I always say that they have to think. And in order to do what you said, they have to keep on doing many real life projects. Find out problem. In fact, I tell people that what is engineer? Engineer is defined as the one who will solve problems of humanity in a cost-effective and ethical manner. So it's inbuilt. It's defined that way. As an engineer, you have to solve problems. And company is existing to solve problems, and company is paying you to do that thing.
Yeah. I agree. And I think, there is another thing which I find, the struggle seems to be defining the problem, not solving it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, agreed.
People tend to, when you tell them something, they tend to assume things, and in their head, they have defined the problem very differently than what I think the real problem is.
Yeah.
Right. So
In fact,
I would say, if you were to sharpen your skills, think of problem solving. Now, obviously, there is a lovely book, by the way, those of you who do Python, Exercises in Programming Style. Okay. It is by a professor, I forget her name, from one of the American or Brazilian universities. So what she has done is she has taken a very simple problem. And that problem is, if you are given a string, let's say a line or a paragraph, you have to come up with the word frequency or term frequency, as it is called, that the word the appears 3 times in this paragraph, word if appears 2 times in the paragraph, etc., etc. Very simple problem, right? She has solved this in that book. She has solved this problem 40 different ways using Python as a language. Same problem, but solved 40 different ways. That is the kind of thinking. I'll give you another example, which is my very favorite example. All of you know a clock, analog clock that is on in our own, not the digital ones, but analog clocks, right? There is an hour hand and there is a minute hand, right? I have a very simple question to ask. There is a screen in which I will enter what is the time, AM, PM, whatever. So 1:17 PM. I want you to tell me what is the angle between the two hands. Okay. Defining this problem itself is a struggle for students. And I have tried this example 100 times perhaps now. And probably some people, in fact, the local colleges already know near around Bombay that if there is an interview in Kalpruks, this problem will be asked. Okay. And people find it difficult to even define what this problem is. I'm not looking for an exact answer, but that is what, Preeti, your question. This transition from campus to corporate requires understanding problems, solving the problem in step by step. Nobody's looking for the final answer. People are looking at how do you think about problem solving? Okay. Sorry, a long answer to a simple question, but yes.
It was a very great answer. Thank you, sir. Moving forwards, I would like to ask, which emerging technologies do you think will be the most relevant in IT industry? IT graduates in the next 5
Smile,
10
please,
years.
Pankaj. Smile, please.
Okay. Sorry, sir.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was saying that which emerging technologies do you think will be the most relevant for IT graduates in the next 5 to 10 years, and how a student can best prepare themselves for these advancements?
You know, if I had the answer to this question, Pankaj, I would be a billionaire. But having said that, I can tell you what's not going to change. And I think that is perhaps more important. I think the basic skill of writing software programs, even today's world, and we have two young kids like you who have joined us from, one is a master in data science and the other is MSc in statistics. And these two girls, they joined us in the field of data science. And when they started looking at it and they said, oh, I want to be a data scientist and I have done this Kaggle and the statistical course and Andrew Ng's course, all that was fine, but I don't want to do programming. Okay. And my answer to them was, if you look at last 10 years where a rapid development has taken place, one thing has remained constant, and which is how to write structured computer programs. If then else, for loops, matrix multiplication, the basic things that are required have not changed in spite of change in technology. And I find rather than running after a technology, because my guess is going to be, I can give you what I am hearing, but it is a guess at this point given how rapidly things are changing. But what I see not changing, even though things have gone from 2000 to 2024, now 24 years, what has not changed is the basic skill required of writing a good software program. How do you write a good software program? And I'll give you an example of this, of what has changed and what has not changed. When Pradeep and I used to write software, right? And Sunil Patil also, because I see him also. By the way, he will say, "Maine bhi likha hai." If there was, let's say, a simple thing like validate a date. Somebody enters a date, you have to validate a date. Almost all of us wrote a date validation routine sometime in our career. So everybody was writing, and I'm taking this as an example. There are other examples. Everybody was writing basic routines over and over again. That has changed. Now there are, as you must have heard, API, API-led programming, application programming interface, so what that has done is people have written the commonly required services, and you can use those services instead of writing them yourselves. So the languages themselves and writing programs has not changed. Some of the things that you would have had to write 20 years ago, you don't need to write them anymore. There are libraries available, there are API calls available, there are API services available, given there is cloud computing. So that has really changed. So if I were to say what is the next 10 years, it's a very difficult thing to forecast or project. But if I were to take a shot, I would say more and more people will be solving problems by assembling various existing solutions through either using libraries, using API calls, using cloud services, versus inventing everything themselves. So ability to leverage these services which are available, even AI, I mean, generative AI and LLMs is such a hot topic today. But very few people are doing anything which is fundamental AI. Everyone is using something that others have written. To do some fundamental work in AI, you have to spend years together and spend tons of money to write a basic model that is required in AI. But what is certainly required by the companies, I'll give you a real example that we are facing. The Kalpuruksh Technologies is owned by Patni's family. We have another business called Kiro Beauty. So all the women and maybe men in this group, please go and buy Kiro Beauty products. It is kirobeauty.com. So Kiro Beauty is a platform that Kalpuruksh team has built. And we wanted to write a chat that will feel like there is a, using generative AI and large language model, feel like somebody real is interacting with you. Initially, when we thought of writing that, we thought this must be a complex problem. It turned out to be a piece of code that is less than 100 lines. Okay, because we didn't have to write much. We had to write a basic software program that takes the input, parses that input, and decides that, okay, I'm going to use LLM, get an answer, and throw it back to the user. Some other things are required. I'm oversimplifying it. But what that told me is that the basic skill of actually writing a good software program, even if it is 100, 200 lines, has not changed. That has remained constant. I'm just using better services and better libraries that are available. So I don't think this is going to change for the next 5-10 years, even though people are saying that, there are co-pilots and, products that are coming in the market that will write code for you, and there is no more career left for software programmers. I don't believe that. Our team is trying using the code generated by AI engines, and we find that we are spending time in understanding the code it has generated and debugging it instead of writing it. So my writing has gone down, but understanding the code and debugging it continues to be there. So if I were to give an advice, and my advice is you have to take it with, my personal advice. I'm not someone who has a crystal ball to tell you what's going to happen 30 years from now, 10 years from now. But I think the basic skill of writing good software programs is going to be there. So focus on that. The rest of it you can learn through various channels that are available, YouTube, some certificate courses, etc. That you can learn. But how do you write good software programs is the only skill. If you want to be in software programming, that is the only thing I think you should focus on. Rest, understanding that through YouTube channels, etc., is good enough. That will keep changing. 3 years from now, what we are doing today may not be relevant at all, but software programming will continue to exist. That is my perspective. Pradeep, I don't know, Sunil, as well. But
yeah, there are many more people who have more experience. I see Ninad, I see Arvind. We have also Jnanada on the call. We have Geeta. We have Anand Patil. Ample people. So I think if any of you have some thoughts, please chip in. We talk with the students often, but I guess you have the chance to voice your advice. Please
challenge my perspective.
Chitale sir, I've kind of grown up learning from you, and today whatever
Geeta,
I
how are
know
you?
has been inspired by you. So I would say that I will not challenge your perspective. I'll just add to it. I'll say just as it was stupid to kind of be afraid of industrialization. When the very first machines came on, people were afraid that, machines are going to take away all my jobs. Today, also being afraid of Gen AI is something similar to that, akin to that. Gen AI, at the end of the day, is a tool, and a tool is only as good as a person using it.
Yeah.
It cannot do anything on its own. It cannot. And yeah, people have been talking about how Gen AI and the artificial intelligence is going to take over the world once we reach that AGI kind of a symptom where it becomes, sentient. It has its mind of its own. But those are possibilities, but not in near future. It will take time. And so rather than being afraid of Gen AI, rather than thinking about that generative AI or AI is going to take my job and I'll not have anything to do, I would say master Gen AI, become more efficient than others, and use it to kind of work smartly and kind of deliver better results. Keep growing, keep learning. Technologies will change, they will evolve, you'll have to adapt. And if you start learning and keep your fundamentals clear, as Sunil sir was saying, if your fundamentals are clear, if you know how to code, you'll be able to kind of take a piece of code and debug it. But if you just don't know how to code, if your logic is not clear, then no amount of Gen AI is going to help you.
Agreed.
Wonderful. Thank you, Geeta.
Sir,
Right.
I would also like to add some more on based on Sir Ninad here. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm just trying to.
I'm working with JP Morgan right now, and very insightful session. Sorry, I joined a bit late, but definitely we are also. I mean, within the organization which I'm working, we are also coming up with what's happening exactly with this and how can we implement this. The only thing which I want to add to our members over here, and definitely, sir, Sunil sir, not to contradict with your perspective, I'm with you on this as well.
You should contradict. I mean, that's what this is all about. Yeah, as Indian mythology says, churning gives rise to Amrut.
No, that's true. The only thing which we learned over this time on using this LLM tools and all this, basically, right now it's not a time. We don't need to spend more time on developing codes, or rather, how can we create? Say, suppose I have a problem statement. How do I create some kind of a solution for it? So you just need to type the right question, and you are ready with the complete code in whichever language you want, in whichever format you want, etc. The only thing which we would be using this is now to analyze it more rather than spending time on building that from the scratch. It's time to analyze the data more using these, and that's what I would like to add over here. So earlier, definitely there were fear in the industry that okay, would we be losing jobs with this? Certainly not, is my perspective over here as well, because it's like your assistant has become digital. So everything is ready and in hand with you, just typing the right question in the right, in English, and you have everything ready in whichever language you want, whichever format, and etc. So that's my input to everyone, and feel free to leverage that and just explore it as much as possible. Only thing I would add over here is please do ensure that you do not share any of your personal data at this moment of your time just to get more insight, because things are still building up. There may not be right controls in place. So please do ensure that. So that certainly as an advice or suggestion I would like to give to everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nina. Yeah. Right. Next one.
Ma'am.
So, if I can add here, so since there are a lot of you who are going to join various particular organizations, you're going to start working on your first job. I'll say working with generative AI is like working with a fresher or any new employee or a new joiner, right? Unless and until you provide proper instructions, proper context, and proper framework, to do the job, that person will not be able to do the job. So whether I work with a fresher or whether I work with generative AI, you have to contextualize it. You have to kind of say exactly what you need for the person to do the job well. So yeah. So if you feel frustrated with your manager and you give, kind of half-baked answers or answers that are not up to the expectation, don't feel frustrated yourself. Just tell your manager, I need better instructions and more context. Similarly, Gen AI will also need better instructions and more context in order to generate relevant answers.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Thank you, Geeta. Next question.
So,
I think Preeti, you're on mute.
Yeah.
and yes, ma'am, my next question is, given that many jobs will continue to exist in new technologies, while new roles emerge in certain fields, how do you think we should balance the expertise between the two?
Between new roles and what? Sorry.
Can you repeat the question, sir?
Yeah.
Given that many jobs will continue to exist in old technologies, while new roles emerge in certain fields, how do you think we should balance their expertise between the two?
Pradeep, the audio quality, I'm not able to
Yeah.
answer.
Okay. So the question is basically, if you go to industry today, there will be some role in new technology and enough in the old technology. Where the fresh graduate, how they should balance learning new technology and mastering the old technologies also.
Yeah, I think as I mentioned, and I think Ninad and Geeta kind of also emphasized that you have to look at new technologies as tools. Okay. But the basic job of solving a problem and coming up with a software, and I'm focusing only on software, not any other discipline, a software program, that responsibility lies with you as an engineer. So your job is to use the tools that are available to write that piece of software that you're going to say, I have written it and this will solve the problem. So new technology areas, if I look at what are the new technology areas, and I will kind of think about it as mobile, right? API, cloud are three big areas that all of us are seeing that are happening. I would say that all of these are tools or means available for you to write a solution better, faster, maybe cheaper. So balancing this is really your core job of writing a software program. That has not gone away. That has remained. What is now available to you is these other tools and technologies that you can use to make your software program better. Now, there will always be nuances to this. There will always be, for example, and I'll take a little 10,000 feet view here. Earlier, when you wrote software, after you wrote software, the job of taking that software, testing it, deploying it in production, etc., was done by a separate team. These days, more and more, after you've spent maybe a year and a half, it is almost a natural and expectation from a software engineer that he or she knows the entire life cycle and is able to do everything. And you must have heard the term DevOps. Okay, right? So if you really think about it, what does it really do is you write the software, you integrate it with the existing software that is running, and you deploy the software, CI/CD as people talk about it, right? More and more when I talk to my clients, when they want an engineer to work on their projects, their expectation is the person will be familiar with these things. The person will be, and I'll give you some other areas also that you should focus on. And this is, some of it is old technology, some of it is new. You have to understand what is software version control. So you must have heard of Git and GitHub, etc. It is now expected that if you are a software engineer working on a project, you will know how to do software versioning. You will know how to do continuous integration and continuous deployment. And these are just new skills that you acquire. Earlier, this was not required as much from an individual software developer. I think after you spend 1 or 2 years in the industry, this has become, you have to know this kind of situation. And from that angle, I would say, as you're entering the industry, start looking at it as not only do I have to write software program, I have to understand how do I maintain versions of software. I have to understand what does continuous integration mean. You may not have to do it day one, but you may have to do it maybe 6 months down the line. You have to understand what is cloud, right? So balancing all of, there is an act of writing the software program and the act of using these technologies available. And these you will have to start, and that's why I use there is another term called, he's a back-end developer, front-end developer. Terminology is being used quite often, or full stack developer. More and more people are expecting, particularly smaller companies, expect you to be a full stack developer. They don't expect you to from day one, but people do want you to know what does it mean to do mobile development? What does it mean to do cloud development? However, all of this fundamentally is coming down to writing a software program and using these technologies to either deploy it or use cloud instead of using your laptop, or use Git or GitHub for version control. These are tools that are available to you, which earlier, I mean, I remember when I used to program way back in 90s, there was a software librarian who did that. We just gave a list of software things that I have written and said, this is the thing, this needs to be deployed, and so that it is available for other users. And she would do the work for us. All of that responsibility has come to you. So I feel it is, the world has become much more challenging for this generation than it was for my generation. And even 10 years ago, I think it was not as challenging. Having said that, the tools, the opportunities to learn available for today's generation are far, far more than what was available to us. So the balance part of it, I would say first 2 to 3 years is going to be your, want of a better word, postgraduate program, right? It is almost as if you've finished your engineering, you understand what software development means and can write some software. Next year and a half, you are going to really enhance your skill. And I do find that some people don't understand it and they think it is a 9 to 5 job. It's no longer the case for the first 2 years of career. After that, I don't know. It depends on each individual. But I think first couple of years for you, you will need to understand these technologies. There are many, but it is all learnable if you have the energy and time that you can spend on it. So balance, and you use the word balance, Preeti, and I personally think, and different people, Pradeep may have a very different view than mine. I don't think there is anything called as work-life balance in today's world. You have to find time for your family and your friends, etc. But this notion of I'm going to have this work-life balance is a tough one. I don't think, I wouldn't misguide you in that area. I'm not saying, people are you're going to be expected to work 12 hours a day. But I think if you yourself are interested in developing for the next 2 to 3 years after your engineering degree, don't think of this as I'm in the industry and this new idea of work-life balance that seems to be getting a lot of traction on social media. I think it is all crap.
I think by balance, she meant balancing between new and old technologies.
I know. I know she meant that, but I'm just also saying that
additional thing.
the understanding that new tech and old tech,
Hmm.
you have to balance, but to do that balancing, you will need to go outside the boundaries and spend
Sure,
more time,
sure.
because none of this is being, from what I know, none of this is being taught in the colleges.
Even
Even
And
IT students and computer science students do not understand or know unless you yourself have taken active interest in learning it. People are not ready for the industry. And the first 6 months to a year are being spent in getting the team or getting the engineer ready for the industry. So, and there, the work-life balance discussion is a tough one to answer. I know Mr. Patil is now smiling and he has raised his hand, but yeah.
One more point I want you to comment on is that for the students, you define technology in a different and correct way. For students, technology meaning modern technology, reactive J. Old technology, COBOL and C. So that language learning is a real speaking simple thing, but for them that technology. If you could,
Yeah,
advise on that front,
I
that
think
would be good.
it's a great point. I don't think you use two terminologies, React and C and COBOL, right? Very interesting choice. When it comes to new front-end development, React seems to be gaining ground. It makes your job easier. It is a framework that will help you develop applications faster. Somebody has written a library in a sense, right? But understanding what front-end development requires you to do basic HTML, JavaScript, CSS programming before you can even think of how to use React. And that is where, the fundamental discussion come in. I would say understanding HTML, JavaScript, one could call it old technology, but it is the foundational thing for you to understand new technologies such as React. And React is no longer new. It is in 19th version. So it is no longer a new tech, right? Right now, React 19 came out, I think, last year or 6 months ago. So it is no longer a new tech. It is probably becoming legacy already. But I think it's just another skill that you have to acquire that builds upon your foundational skill. So don't think of it as new and old. It is think of it as I have to know the basics, and top of it, I have to now start taking other abstractions which are available, such as React, just as an example. Yeah.
Okay, I think Anand has some point to make. Anand, please go ahead.
Yes, actually, Sunil has covered and given a classic guideline. I just want to add a couple of more points for the students. My suggestion to them would be whichever company they join, they should master the technology which company wants them to master in first 2 years, and then start learning additional technology, because this only will give them a higher level of growth as well as continuous traction in the career. Many students I have seen, they want to jump to the latest technology, they jump ships, they jump projects, but they don't realize that for learning basics, a solid hands-on is essential in terms of technology. And if possible, at least for first 15 years of career, please don't come out of technology. That's my suggestion. Thank you. Thanks, Sunil. And
okay, thanks. Okay, yeah. Next question.
I think Gopal wants to say something.
Yeah.
Basically, my name is Gopal Kalpati, and I'm not from the IT background. But whatever you have said, I could understand. And I have seen in my life of career, and I've seen right from the beginning of as a student, the evolution of the entire computer, the softwares. And I understand only one thing, that one has to, all the students have to keep in mind that learning is a continuous process. You cannot compartmentalize. I am graduate, I have learned enough, I am now going to start my career as an employee, and I am not going to learn anything. I know everything. That should be removed totally from your minds for such students, and you should say that I should continuously start learning. That is only
learn to learn.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. And I think I can also say that corporates do spend time and money on getting people trained and retained and reskilled all the time. It has become necessary for corporates to do that.
Okay. Next question.
Thank you, Gopal sir. Learning is a never-ending process, and there must be fire within us to keep on learning. And thank you, Gita ma'am, and
Thank you.
Kamath sir also. So, sir, should we move to next question?
Yeah, yeah, please.
Sir, am I
Go ahead.
audible, sir?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Hmm.
Technical skills or domain skills, which is more important?
Fascinating question. I think in the beginning, perhaps technical skills are important, very important. However, understanding, and this goes back to my first statement, that understanding the problem is most important. And unless and until you understand the problem that the user is facing, you won't be able to solve the problem using programming. And I'll give you a real example, and very late in my career, but very interesting example that I had. And for me, this was in 2008. So you can imagine it was 23 years after I started working. And we were developing software for a telecom company. It's a very Indian telecom company. We had a 200 people team developing software along with another partner, another big player in the Indian industry. So both of us were developers, and we had a presentation to the business users of the telecom company. This was a very simple software that allowed the telecom company, when they sell SIM cards, right? The SIM cards that you use in the phone, selling those SIM card to people, getting all the documentation, etc., as you know, and recording that transaction, that this sale was done to Pankaj. Okay? We were very happy with the solution we had developed, etc., etc. It was a large project, as you can imagine, 200 people working on it. And this was a presentation along with the IT head of this telecom company to the CEO of Eastern operations of this company. This was in Bombay, and we went there, and we were all happy that software is done, developed, about to be delivered. And we gave a demo and all of that. And the CEO, we were very happy. We were like, we are done. This is fabulous. The CEO said, I remember him addressing me saying, Sunil, all of this is great. And I know you have done a fabulous job and your team has done a fabulous job. But I'll tell you what my problem is, okay? I mean, think about it. He has seen our solution and he's now saying, I'll tell you what my problem is. My problem is that there is this guy called Anand Patil who has a young son who is 16 or 17 years old. And Anand Patil, and pardon me, Anand, I know you don't do this, but Anand Patil goes to this local pan shop to smoke cigarettes. Anand doesn't do it, but I'll say it anyway. Let's take this as an example. And when he goes to that pan shop, this is what is called as discretionary spend. So those of you know a little bit of economics, that he doesn't have to smoke a cigarette, but he's smoking a cigarette. I want the pan wala to say that, आनंद जी, आपका बेटा अभी 16 साल का हो गया है, आप उसके लिए एक सिम क्यों नहीं खरीदते? 100 रुपए का, 200 रुपए का आपको whatever is required to get it registered, he will also be accessible. And Anand should, instead of spending it on cigarette, is going to spend it on the SIM card. So that his son is able to take that phone. And then the CEO said, this is my problem. Can your software solve this? Right? He says, I know your software can solve the problem of recording that somebody bought a SIM for this amount. This is the KYC, blah, blah, blah. All of that is great. But my real business problem is I want to increase my sale. And I want to increase my sale in such a way that the person who is in contact with the consumer of my service, that person should be able to use all the intelligence that the software has and make that SIM card sale. And instead of the person spending it on a cigarette or a beer or fancy food, I want him to buy a SIM. If your software can solve this problem, I'm interested in listening more about it. Otherwise, thank you very much. आपको आपके पैसे मिल जाएंगे. So the domain knowledge discussion that you asked is really tied to this, that many a times we think we have solved the problem, but the consumer or the user of your IT program or services, he had a very different problem to begin with. You thought the problem was he needs a system where all this data can be entered and used and available and this report and that report. His problem was very simple. मुझे ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा सिम बेचने हैं. अगर बिकवा सकते हो तो बताओ कैसे करोगे. So understanding domain becomes very important as you start designing software. Having said that, even a software developer, when he or she is particularly software that is that is made for the front end, the web software or mobile software, there I think the domain understanding becomes very important. How will this software be used? Who is going to use it? Am I making easier for this person to use it? Right? I remember, and Pradeep will remember is very, very clearly, of what domain means. There was a project which Pradeep and I were involved in heavily way back in 90s for a large aircraft manufacturer.
So Nyanada, she's there.
She's there. Nyanda is also there, right? And there was one example of domain, and this is technical domain, but one example of domain. So we had written this software and technology has changed. And in the new technology called Power Builder, there was some features that were available which we had not written. And we developed the software and we delivered it to the customer. And we thought we had done our job. And the customer practically fought with us. And Pradeep was in US, I remember that time. And his argument was, I want you to write the software using latest technology. And we said, no, but you didn't ask us to do that. We are using this old technology and this is, we have written it, it's working. Their lawyers actually found one clause in our contract, said the software will be user friendly. And they said, you see, you said your software will be user friendly, but your software is not user friendly because there is this new technology. If you use this, it will become more user friendly. There was this drop down box feature, I remember, which we had not used. And they wanted that to be used. I don't even remember what that screen was. But so when we use such phrases, and this is also a domain discussion in my view, when we start looking at what is the problem that we are solving, the software program is not an end in itself. It is going to be used by somebody to do something that they do in real life, some real business. And unless and until we understand the domain in that sense, to your question, we will not be able to solve the problems. Now, fresh out of college, will you be asked to understand the domain? Probably not. But when you're in a small team, if you're in a small team, let's say you're a team of 3 or 4 people, it would be good to understand and ask questions to your project leader or other team members or the customer if you're working with the customer. What do you really want to do with this? I can write this software and think that this software does what you asked me, but what are you really wanting to do? Once you understand that, maybe your software program will be completely different. So domain understanding becomes extremely important when it comes to software design. If you go into a large team, that may not be your responsibility, but in smaller teams, it may become your responsibility whether you like it or not.
Thank you, sir, for your experiences. The next question is, what are the personal
The last question. Yeah.
That
Go
is
ahead.
the
Yeah.
last question. What personal attributes do you consider to be essential for thriving in IT industry?
What personal?
Personal attributes do you consider to be essential for a thriving in IT industry?
It's a tough one, but I mean, I think we talked about the problem solving element. I think ability to communicate um, is very critical, and the reason for that is this interface between the people who are using it and people who are writing the software. There, the communication skills become very important. So, technical skills and design skills and software design skills, etc., those are given. But one more attribute I would say is understanding how do you extract information from people who want you to write software. It could be a project leader, it could be a team leader, it could be an end customer. But asking questions, this is, by the way, one of the most common feedback that our customers have given us for the past 20, 30 years. And part of it is, people say it is cultural element of Indians. I don't know whether it is right or wrong, but that's what they say. The ability to say no, as an example, is very commonly cited. Customer says, Pankaj, I want you to write the software. Pankaj says, yeah, I will take 5 days or 6 days. But after first day, Pankaj realizes that it cannot be done in 5 days. It is going to take 5 weeks. Going back and telling the customer, sorry, I cannot do this in 5 days. It's going to take 5 weeks. These are the reasons. Or you're already doing something and customer says, oh, I want you to do this, and telling the customer, sorry, I cannot do this. The ability to say no in a not in a very offensive manner, but ability to say no and giving the pushback. So this element of communication, being assertive, is very important, I think, particularly if you talk to, when you work with either your team leader, project leader, or customer. That ability to say no and communicate well. And when I say communication, I do not mean English or grammar or anything like that. It is more the nature of communication, an assertive way of saying, this is what I can do, this is what I can't do, etc., etc. So this is a very important attribute. Second important attribute, I think, and this is related to our domain in particular and engineers in particular, is this focus on quality. I find people who write good software and who have been successful, their focus on quality, and I don't mean quality in the sense, there are standards, etc., and ISO 9000 CMMI, etc. I mean quality is, this has to be a good product. I have crafted this, and it has to be a good product. That desire is very important in a software developer. If you don't have that desire, you may not write good quality software. It may work, but it may not be good quality. So I think this attitude about, this is my work product and this has to be a great work product, is very important for the person to have. So other than the technical skills, I think communication skills, being assertive, is very important. And I personally feel, given that software is so pervasive today, a very important attribute is this focus on quality. I feel that, many a times people don't give it adequate attention. And as a result, we ship products that are not ready for the market. So there could be many other things, but I feel that this I see more often missing in people, that they're not proud about they're not taking pride in what they have written. They write software, it seems to work, but if you start looking at it, it looks like they have not paid attention. They've just, Indian terminology, many a times people use jugaad kiya hai discussion, right? Uh, that is really horrendous, because cost of that is humongous later in the life cycle. So I would say that's a very important trait the person needs to have: the desire to write and understanding what is good software.
Wonderful.
Thank you, sir.
I think, yeah, you can move to the
Quality
last
of
question. Thank
software
you.
and the assertiveness. That is very important.
Yeah, I think communication is very important. And many a times people hesitate. What if I am wrong? It is better to be wrong now than sorry later.
Yes. Sir, would you like to entertain some question from our audience?
I think we are running out of time now, so you can summarize that. You can just thank, that should be fine.
Okay, sir. Due to time constraint, we could not entertain question from audience. But the last 1 hour, the churning has been done, and the Amrit must be distributed among all of us. Everyone has some.
I hope it is that, and I hope you take it. And I have mentioned this to Pankaj, you and Preeti the other day, and Pradeep also. I like when there are people who listen to me. So feel free to have another session if required, or any other questions, one-on-one. Feel free to reach out. Whatever I can do, I will do. Yeah.
Thank you, Anand Patil, sir. Okay. I would like to quickly summarize whatever done, and in a very short. That the first thing is AI is something we should not be fear of, and the understanding the basics will be the remain crucial. The fundamental structure of writing software and the need for clear instructions for computers won't change. So that's something we need to adapt. And in whatever in the next 5 to 10 years, the leveraging emerging technologies like API, cloud, and DevOps to solve problems, and mostly the integrating the technologies and keeping our fundamentals strong is important. And the skills of debugging and comprehension and understanding the code are never gonna waste. And to embrace these tools, write better and faster code. Maintenance software version maintaining, like you said, understanding continuous integration and the use of technologies like Git and GitHub for version control will be the important. And as you said, the clear communication between the client and customer, the assertiveness, and how to say no if we don't know something. And the most important, the quality of software. We must be proud of what we have done. We must be proud of our software and deliver a good software, quality software. So that is important. I would like to thank Mr. Sunil Chitale, sir, for this wonderful interaction. I would like to thank all the audience on the Zoom as well as on some audience was in YouTube. So thank you all of us to come here and to do this churning process and to gain some drop of knowledge. Pradeep sir, anything more?
No, that's fine. So thank you very much to Sunil as well as to both of you for conducting the session, and thank you all people who joined. Wonderful.
Thank you, people. Take care. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Thank you, sir. Bye.